In 1243, on the battlefields of eastern Anatolia, the Mongol Empire achieved a devastating victory. They crushed the Sultanate of Rum, then the most powerful Turkic state in the region. This was part of a broader strategy to establish control over all of Western Asia, ensuring no Turkic power could pose a threat. 2 centuries later, in 1453, another Turkic state, the Ottoman Empire, conquered Constantinople, marking the collapse of the 1,000-year-old Byzantine Empire. The Ottomans evolved into one of the world's most formidable empires, dominating 3 continents for over 600 years. This presents a striking paradox. By striving to eradicate Turkic power in Anatolia, the Mongols inadvertently fostered the ideal conditions for the rise of history's most potent Turkic empire. How can military dominance lead to such a diametrically opposed outcome? In what way does an act of destruction become an act of creation?
And most importantly, what lesson does this narrative offer us regarding unforeseen historical consequences? Before we delve into this tale, please let me know where you're viewing this video from and what time it currently is for you. Share your comments below. I'm genuinely curious about the time zones this video reaches. Now let's go back to 1243, when a single battle reshaped the destiny of an entire region. To grasp this history, we must journey to 1071, more than 170 years prior to the Mongol arrival. At the Battle of Manzikert, the Seljuk Turks decisively defeated the Byzantine Empire, paving the way for the conquest of Anatolia. This wasn't merely an ordinary invasion, it represented the migration of an entire civilization. Turkic peoples, originating from the Central Asian steppes, brought with them not only warriors but also a complete culture, religion, and social organization system. In 1077, they established the Sultanate of Rum. Rum signified Rome, as this territory had once formed part of the Eastern Roman Empire. By the late 10th and early 11th centuries, the Sultanate of Rum reached its zenith. They were more than just a military force. They were a hub of civilization. They constructed an extensive network of caravanserais along trade routes connecting Central Asia with the Mediterranean. Commerce flourished, particularly with Genoa. Cities like Konya transformed into centers of learning, where scholars taught astronomy, mathematics, and philosophy. Remarkably, the Sultanate of Rum developed a distinctive Turco-Persian culture. Sultans bore Persian names. Officials spoke Persian. Literature and architecture exhibited profound Persian influence. Why? Because Turkic peoples recognized that to govern a civilized territory, one needed to learn from that civilization. They fused their military might with Persian cultural refinement, forging a unique synthesis. However, nothing in history endures forever. The Sultanate of Rum faced pressure from 2 directions. From the west, crusaders launched continuous attacks, while from the east, a new force emerged, poised to alter everything. In 1206, Genghis Khan united the Mongol tribes. Over the subsequent 2 decades, Mongol armies swept across Central Asia like a hurricane. Between 1219 and 1221, they obliterated the Khwarezmian Empire, one of the most powerful Islamic states of its era. Cities such as Bukhara, Samarkand, and Merv were razed to the ground. Estimates suggest between 2 and 15 million people perished. This was not merely a conquest, it was a message. Resist the Mongols and face annihilation. By the early 1230s, the Mongols had subdued much of Persia and now bordered the Sultanate of Rum. Initially, the Sultans of Rum attempted to avoid conflict. In 1236, Sultan Kaikubad conceded vassalage to the Mongols and agreed to pay tribute. This was a pragmatic decision. Rum could not defeat the Mongols on the battlefield, but by submitting, they could retain relative autonomy and continue governing their territory. For several years, this strategy proved effective, but in 1241, the great Khan Ogedei died. The Mongol Empire plunged into a temporary succession crisis. Sultan Kakisraw II saw this as an opportunity. He announced the cessation of tribute payments, believing the Mongols were too consumed with internal affairs to react. This represented one of history's greatest miscalculations. Kakisraw underestimated 2 crucial aspects.
Firstly, despite their internal crisis, the Mongols still maintained an effective military organization. Secondly, for the Mongols, allowing a vassal to rebel with impunity would set a dangerous precedent. If Rum escaped punishment, all other vassals might also revolt. The Mongol commander Baiju summoned Khosrow to reconfirm his submission. When the Sultan refused, Baiju declared war.
Khosrow assembled a massive army of 80,000 men. He forged an alliance with the Empire of Trebizond, the Ayyubids of Aleppo, and even enlisted Frankish mercenaries. On paper, it was an impressive coalition. Baiju commanded only 30,000 Mongol warriors, along with auxiliary units from Georgia and Armenia. The confrontation occurred on Mount Kosada, situated between Sivas and Erzincan. For much of the initial day, the forces of Rum appeared to hold the upper hand, outnumbering the Mongols by almost 3-1. However, a significant drawback existed: their lack of discipline and cohesion. The Mongol army, despite its smaller size, was exceptionally well drilled, operating with seamless coordination, executing tactical maneuvers perfected through countless repetitions. As evening approached, the Mongols employed their renowned feigned retreat strategy. When their adversaries eagerly pursued, the Mongols suddenly wheeled around, unleashing a torrent of arrows upon their pursuers. Panic gripped the Rum soldiers, spreading rapidly. That night, the entire Rum army abandoned their encampment and fled. Sultan Khosrow also made his escape, fearing that disloyal subordinates might defect to the Mongol side. Baiju, suspecting a trap within the deserted camp, waited another day before advancing, which ultimately cost him the chance to capture the Sultan. Nevertheless, the victory was undeniable. Rum never truly recovered from this devastating defeat. The vizier, Pervani Mu'in al-Din Suleiman, was compelled to negotiate the terms of surrender. The annual tribute demanded from Rum was immense: 12 million silver dirhams, 500 rolls of silk, 500 camels, and 5,000 sheep, collectively equivalent to 400,000 gold dinars. All of this had to be delivered to Mongolia at Rum's expense. A Mongol overseer was appointed to govern the region. The Sultan of Rum technically still ruled, but only at the Mongols' behest. In 1246, Khosrow passed away. His 3 sons immediately began vying for power, effectively splitting the kingdom into 3 separate entities. The Mongols encouraged this fragmentation, recognizing that a weakened, fractured sultanate was far easier to control than a unified state. From 1243 to 1308, the Sultanate of Rum existed merely as a nominal entity, with actual authority residing with the Mongols. By 1256, all of Anatolia formally submitted to Monk. In 1264, following the death of Sultan Kilich Arslan IV, Rum was effectively governed by a Mongol regent. Central authority steadily eroded, leading local lords to operate independently. Throughout Anatolia, numerous small beyliks emerged. In 1308, the last sultan was assassinated, marking the official end of the Sultanate of Rum. It's crucial to understand that this wasn't merely a political shift. It represented a complete transformation of the social fabric. Previously, Anatolia had a strong central government. Now, no single power was strong enough to unify the region. Dozens of minor beyliks competed with each other, lacking common laws and stable security. Yet within this chaos, an opportunity arose. In 1258, precisely 15 years after the Battle of Kosada, in the small village of Sout in northwestern Anatolia, a child was born. His name was Osman. His father, Ertuğrul, was the chief of a small Turkic tribe from the Kaya clan. They had been granted pastures by the Sultan of Rum as a reward for military service. As he matured, Osman inherited a very small beylik, less than half the size of modern Switzerland. However, this beylik possessed a unique geographical advantage. It was situated in northwestern Anatolia, far enough to avoid direct Mongol intervention from the east, but close enough to access a weakening Byzantine Empire to the west. Consider this. After the Mongols destroyed the Sultanate of Rum, thousands of Turkic warriors, farmers, scholars, and Muslim clerics sought a safe haven. They couldn't go east as the Mongols ruled there. They couldn't remain in central Anatolia,
which was consumed by chaos from constantly warring beyliks. But to the west, a small beylik stood against the Byzantines, the enemies of the faith. For the Ghazi warriors, those who considered the fight for Islam sacred, this was an ideal location. Osman's beylik became a magnet, not because it was the most powerful, but because it was in the right place. It offered what others couldn't, an opportunity to fight, expand territory, and escape Mongol influence. Thousands flocked there, each contributing their skills. Warriors brought combat experience, artisans contributed their crafts, scholars shared knowledge, and the clergy offered spiritual authority. Osman wasn't a brilliant military strategist, but he possessed three crucial qualities.
Firstly, patience. He avoided rushing into major battles. Instead, he slowly expanded, capturing small Byzantine fortresses one by one. Secondly, organizational ability. He understood how to transform nomadic warriors into a disciplined army. He established administrative structures, a taxation system, and courts. Thirdly, the capacity to attract people. He treated both Muslims and Christians fairly. Many Byzantine officials, witnessing the decline of their empire, surrendered to Osman and were treated well. In 1299, Osman performed a symbolically significant act. He declared independence from the Sultanate of Rum, which by then was merely a shadow of its former self. He decreed that the Friday sermons in mosques should be delivered in his name, rather than in the name of the Sultan of Rum or the Mongols. This act was a decisive political declaration. We are an independent state. This occasion in 1299 is widely recognized as the founding date of the Ottoman Empire.
Although the empire at that time was merely a small beylik, traversable on foot within a few days, its foundational seed had been planted. Over the subsequent 25 years, Osman successfully doubled the extent of his territories. By 1326, his son, Orhan, had captured Bursa, a strategically significant city located just 150 kilometers from Constantinople. Bursa subsequently became the inaugural capital of the Ottoman Empire. From this base, over the next 127 years, the Ottomans systematically expanded their influence until they eventually conquered Constantinople in 1453, thereby transforming themselves into one of the world's most formidable powers. So, how did the Mongols, one of history's most strategically astute and well-organized empires, inadvertently give rise to the very rival they sought to suppress? The explanation lies in four interconnected factors. The Mongols were adept at dismantling existing power hierarchies. They decisively defeated the Sultanate of Rum, but failed to establish an effective alternative governing structure. Why? Anatolia was not their primary strategic focus. It was merely a peripheral province within their vast empire. They were content with collecting tribute and maintaining a state of disarray, which prevented any single power from becoming excessively strong. However, within the resulting power vacuum, numerous minor beyliks began to emerge, and one of these, strategically positioned, grew to become the Ottoman Empire. When the Mongols devastated Central Asia and Persia, hundreds of thousands of people fled westward. These were not just ordinary citizens. Among them were highly skilled warriors, master craftsmen, erudite scholars, and administrators who had served in grand courts. They brought with them not only individual talents, but also crucial knowledge about statecraft, military management, and administrative practices.
Osman and his successors learned extensively from these individuals. The Ottomans did not build everything from scratch. They adopted practices from preceding empires, even from the Mongols themselves. If Byzantium had maintained its formidable strength, the Ottomans would have had virtually no chance of success. However, Byzantium had been profoundly weakened by the Fourth Crusade in 1204, when the Crusaders sacked Constantinople. Compounding this were continuous civil wars, economic crises, and persistent territorial losses. Consequently, Byzantium was no longer capable of effectively resisting the Ottoman threat. The Ottomans forged their identity around the concept of Ghazi, warriors committed to fighting for Islam. This was more than just propaganda. It was a profound motivation that attracted fighters from across the Islamic world. While other beyliks in Anatolia were engaged in internecine conflicts, the Ottomans strategically focused on westward expansion, targeting Byzantine lands. This provided a unifying mission, a common purpose for all who rallied behind them. This history offers an excellent illustration of systemic thinking. The Mongols pursued a short-term objective, to annihilate the Sultanate of Rum and avert a potential threat. They succeeded completely in this endeavor. However, they failed to account for the long-term consequences. By creating a power vacuum, redirecting thousands of skilled individuals westward, and failing to establish stable replacement structures, they inadvertently created the perfect conditions for the emergence of a new force. And this force, the Ottomans, ultimately became far more powerful than the Sultanate of Rum that the Mongols had destroyed. So, what does this 780-year-old story reveal to us about complex systems? History in itself is an exceedingly intricate system.
No action exists in isolation. Every decision carries repercussions, many of which are unforeseeable. The Mongols were among the most intelligent empires in history. They possessed superior organization, effective intelligence gathering, and a long-term strategy. Yet even they could not foresee that the destruction of Rum would pave the way for the rise of the Ottomans. This does not imply that we should shy away from action, but it underscores the importance of humility in our predictive capabilities and the need to always prepare for undesirable outcomes. When you dismantle a power structure, you do not create a void, you create opportunities for new forces to emerge. The crucial question is not whether to destroy or not, but rather, if we do destroy, who will fill the vacuum? If you lack a clear answer to the second question, proceed with caution regarding the first. The Mongols annihilated Rum, but failed to establish a robust replacement structure. As a result, dozens of small beyliks arose, and one of them eventually transformed into the Ottoman Empire. Osman was not the most innately talented ruler in Anatolia. His beylik was neither the wealthiest nor the most powerful, but he found himself in the right place at the opportune moment. This does not diminish Osman's achievements, as success typically requires both talent and good fortune. However, it serves as a powerful reminder that context plays an immense role. Our choices hold significance only within the specific context in which we operate. Osman seized the opportunity because he understood his context. He realized that his geographical position was an advantage. He perceived the influx of refugees in need of sanctuary, and he recognized Byzantium's weakening state. History is replete with such paradoxes. Well-intended actions often culminate in disaster. Conversely, misfortunes frequently give rise to fresh opportunities. Even the most formidable empires occasionally emerge from the most unassuming origins. The Battle of Kosa Dagh in 1243 marked a decisive victory for the Mongols. Yet, a mere 210 years later, the descendants of those they vanquished seized Constantinople, establishing an empire that endured for another 6 centuries. This serves as a powerful reminder of humility. We can never possess complete certainty about the long-term repercussions of our deeds. What appears to be an unequivocal triumph today could very well sow the seeds of future defeats. And what seems like a setback might actually pave the way for extraordinary future successes. This, perhaps, is the most invaluable lesson. Therefore, proceed with caution. Always be prepared for shifts and never presume a full grasp of all the ramifications of your choices. So, we've explored one of history's great ironies, how the Mongols, in their endeavor to crush Turkic power, inadvertently laid the groundwork for the most formidable Turkic empire in existence. Now, I'd like to pose a question to you. Have there been instances in your own life where your actions led to outcomes diametrically opposed to what you anticipated? Perhaps a decision that seemed correct created hardships, or a failure unexpectedly opened up new avenues. Please share your experiences in the comments. A personal narrative about unforeseen consequences frequently offers more insight than any textbook. If this video has provided you with a fresh perspective on history and life, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to support the channel. And remember to click the bell icon so you don't miss future historical accounts. This isn't just about understanding the past, it's about comprehending the world.